I'm here with Andy of Black Veil Brides to talk about the upcoming new EP, Bleeders, the tour, and the man, the legend himself. How's things going?
Doing good. In a hotel right now. We're in rehearsals. About to head out on the Bleeders US tour. So looking forward to it. I got my little Bleeders pin there. It's the first piece of swag from this era, so I'm very excited about it.
And you have it in a very predominant spot, easy to see.
Got to, man. You know, if I learned one thing from Gene Simmons, it's you gotta put it out there, right?
If there's one thing that he has taught all of us, definitely that is it. So let's talk a little bit about, before we even talk about the tour, but let's talk about this Sweeney Todd inspiration that is a huge part of this Bleeders EP, this Bleeders song, but also a huge part of you and the band and how everything got started. Have you ever thought that maybe perhaps Sweeney Todd has inspired you, but the way you have handled um, those monsters around you, you've become perhaps a little bit more of a Dexter?
Yeah, there you go. That's well. I like both. I'm a Dexter fan too, so I don't mind that. Yeah, you know, the thing about Sweeney Todd that inspired me the most as a kid was I had I had all this frustration of being, you know, sort of this. I didn't really fit in anywhere. You know, I loved horror movies and comic books and all that stuff, and that wasn't yet the industry that it is now. You know, to say that you liked comic books in the mid '90s wasn't nearly what it is now. Or you know, every movie is a comic book movie. But the bands I liked, people around me didn't know. And then on the other hand, you know, I played sports my whole life, so I was around the sort of jock culture, and I didn't fit in with them. I just always felt kind of alone, and I always felt kind of discounted or like I wasn't a part of any group. So the idea of, you know, the like I'll show you attitude. For me, it wasn't about homicide, but it was about, you know, sort of achieving my dreams and being able to do the stuff I said I was going to do. And I really carried that as a kid. And the anger of Sweeney Todd, you know, when he in the Epiphany song, where he, you know, he talks about how the world is this big black pit. Well, that's exactly how every sort of, you know, angsty teenager feels about life, right? Like you feel like everything is crap and you don't understand how people are the way they are and blah blah blah. So it definitely inspired me. But then as I got older, you know, it's become more about how do you take those feelings of revenge and frustration and turn them into usable positives towards who you are, as opposed to just carrying around baggage all the time.
With all the different incarnations of Sweeney Todd that have been done over the years, is there room for one that features Andy as Sweeney Todd?
We'll see. I hope so. You know, I think when this music video comes out, people are going to be, you know, you'll get to see what I would do with that character.
Oh, that's interesting. Now you're piquing everybody's interest with that little tidbit. Uh, Creating this song, was it challenging at times? Was it difficult to go from the idea, the concept, to then the execution in the final product?
You know, it was one of those things where this song started out as a whole different thing. You know, there was a different working title. I had actually tracked entirely different vocals to a demo version of this song. And then it literally just sort of hit me one day. I was out for a walk around my neighborhood back home, and I started thinking about the show and the influence that the show has had on me. And I thought, well, that is where I should take this song lyrically. And then you know, we did a tour, and then towards the end of the tour, I called Eric Ron, our producer, and I said, look, I think that we need to take this in a whole different direction. And so he and I got together, and I recut all my vocals. We changed the tone. I wrote all different lyrics for the song, and then that got everybody excited about the tone change. And you know, now Jake started adding more and more kind of heavy elements to it, and more of the kind of string sections and all that stuff. So it was one of those things where it's a very complicated way of getting to a place, but once we were going, everything went real fast.
Will there be any bleed through from this song, from this EP, to what perhaps the next full-length record of Black Veil Brides will sound like, feel like?
Yeah, I mean, Bleeders will appear on the full length record. This is just sort of a, you know, a opening appetizer, I guess you could call it, for what we're working on now. Tonally, these specific elements are for, this Sweeney Todd themed part. That's not, the record is not going to be in its totality Sweeney Todd themed, but sonically, this is definitely the direction that the record is heading in.
I wasn't surprised with, obviously, My Friends, part of this EP. That made total sense to me. Sunday Bloody Sunday, that one kind of caught me a little bit off guard. Why that cover?
I've loved that song for, there's just those songs that you hear when you're a kid that just resonate with you for one reason or another reason. I remember I went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with my mom and my aunt when I was about 8 years old in Cleveland, Ohio, and they had it was some anniversary of the Rattle and Hum movie, and they had a whole exhibit there, and I got a T-shirt and I got like a greatest hits record, and I didn't really know much about U2, but my aunt was a big U2 fan, so that's why we went, and I just fell in love with especially that era of the band. And for us, the song is obviously a very politically charged song. Our variation of the song, we're not dealing in Irish politics of the day, so obviously there's a different meaning for us. And I think sometimes it's okay to take a song that has a very specific meaning, and as long as you're honoring it to the truth of the song, it doesn't have to have in its totality the same lyrical place it came from. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? Like, it's not to say that I'm trying to take away from the meaning of the song, but to me, it's more about being 8 years old, hearing that song and thinking this is an extremely cool song, that drum pattern that everybody knows, the big chorus, like it just felt like it could be something we could do one day. And so we had a day with Eric Ron when we started working on all these, where we just ran through 20 different song options that we had of what we could cover. And, because we had done the Temple of Love cover with him, and we really enjoyed that. So we're like, let's try some others. And that was the one that just stuck out as, not only does it work from the level of what we are trying to accomplish sonically, but it doesn't hurt that the song is called Bloody when you're putting together a Sweeney Todd EP.
I thought, honestly, that's where you guys were coming from, that angle. Because I honestly feel that when you create music, when you're in the creating process, the music belongs to you. But once you put it out there, it belongs to the listener. And then it's
Absolutely.
really up to the listener to take it in any direction that we want to take it, even if the direction is completely different from what you had in mind when you're creating it. So
I also thought it was a challenge because the original song is like 6 minutes long. So trying to figure out a way to make that a 3.5, 4 minute, hard rock song. It was an enjoyable challenge for us to figure out, how do you put a Black Veil Bride's guitar solo in this, or make it sound like our band.
And I think for a lot of fans that probably don't know the original, they'll feel like it's just another one of your tracks. You guys did a wonderful job making it close enough to the original, but still fresh enough that it feels like a brand new song.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Now, this virtual blood drive, I must say, I was super curious when I saw the press release, because I don't think any other band has ever done anything like that. Partnering up with the American Red Cross, doing this blood drive. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the details? I know fans that are donating blood can come to the show and bring some proof of it to pick up a specific merch package, but could you elaborate exactly on the thought process and how is it all going to work out?
Well, first of all, one of the things that they'll get in the merch packages is this little pin here. So that very prescient that I brought it up at the beginning. So I wanna say that it is definitely something that's unique, but I gotta give credit. We took this idea from something that Wasp did in like 1984 at the Whiskey. They did a blood drive, and Wasp has always been a band that I loved, and it was something that, for them at the time, it was obviously very much relating to the Nick or Blackie was eating raw meat on stage and the blood and everything, so it fit in with that. So then we thought, well, we're doing this Sweeney Todd thing, and if we're going to do something that is more horror oriented, why not add something that's more altruistic in the way that, our band has tended, our message has tended to be more of a positive message than a brutally murder people message. So it's a way of sort of taking the kind of tongue-in-cheek blood element of it and then adding something that is truly vital and something that's needed. So I hope that people sign up. Admittedly, I have never given blood before. I'm going to be doing it on this tour. So I will be joining the ranks, and I hope everybody else does as well.
Are you going to pick up your own merch package?
I get a discount on that stuff. So
I love the fact that you're committing it to the cause. You're not just asking fans, but you're doing it yourself. Are you going to document it? Because I think it would be really cool to get the message of donating blood out there on a more personal level.
That's the plan. That's the plan. Once we're on the road here, we're gonna get it going, and I definitely will document my journey to give blood. Now, the good thing is, I don't have like a fear of needles. I also want to say, I see a lot of people saying that for one medical reason or another, or simply because they have a fear of needles, they're unable to join. And I want everybody to know that's totally okay. There are other ways to support the American Red Cross in what we're doing. And if you can't join this, I'm sure there's a million ways that you can be helpful in a way that's more appropriate for you. So I definitely want to make sure anybody doesn't feel left out of this.
Take your aunt, take your uncle, your mom, your dad, get them to donate some blood.
Yep.
Any little bit helps. The tour starts April 25th in San Francisco. It ends May 25th in LA. Is there, and I don't want necessarily to put you on the spot, but is there a city out there, a state out there that is Black Veil Bride's city, Black Veil Bride's state in your mind when you perform?
There's many. Obviously, I would say that Los Angeles will always be special because that's sort of my adopted home. I moved out here when I was a teenager, and I grew up here essentially. I became an adult here. All of my early life experiences were here. I was not born here. I'm not a native Angelino, and I no longer live here. But we will always have an element of a connection with this city. And similarly, Cincinnati and Columbus and the areas around Southern Ohio and Central Ohio, Cleveland. Those are all places that are close to where I'm from. But the longer you're around, and the more fortunate you get to be able to do this, you find that there are pockets all over the world of places that just really love and accept your band. So I don't know why, let's say Denver or these other places, you're going to have a great show, but for some reason there's certain places that really take to what you do. And one of the biggest places in the world for us is Mexico City. And that's something that I would have never known getting into this. Hey, you're going to be going to Mexico City 3-4 times a year. And I absolutely love it and adore it. And so, it's, I always like to say, the longer you do this, the more you're looking for the new places that, you maybe haven't played a lot, or you haven't played enough shows there to have a history with the audience, to come back through and see how those markets have grown.
And break new ground. And speaking of that, is it becoming more and more difficult to put a set list together that makes everybody happy? You guys obviously performing, but the fan base as well?
Well, we got in kind of a rut with the set list, admittedly, for the last year, because we were touring so much, tour to tour to tour to tour. And a lot of times it would be festival runs. We did a support run with Hailstorm. So you're paring down your set list to essentially just like the greatest hits, quote unquote. And there isn't much room for, when you do a longer scale tour, to put in anything other than the stuff that you kind of had already been rehearsing. So we did the Trinity of Terror tour, which was 3 bands playing an hour headline, set. And that really pared down the number of songs that we had been rehearsing regularly. So I think, we've been very lucky that fans aren't necessarily complaining about the set list, but I'm the first to say that for the last year, especially, the set list has gotten to a place where I think we could be a little bit more open to new songs. And so this tour, I'm destroying my voice learning songs that we haven't played in 12 years. And, yesterday in rehearsal, there were 3 separate songs that we rehearsed that we realized it was the first time that we were playing that song in like 12, 13 years. So we definitely want to bring out a more varied set list for this time around, and we hope the fans like that.
I know you're well aware that your music has helped a lot of people during difficult times, all sorts of different difficult times. When you learn about those experiences directly from fans, does that give you the fuel that you need to deal with your own difficult times?
Yeah, I think it's like anything, right? I'm talking to you. You and I have a back and forth based upon the subject that we're talking about. And I think similarly, when you create art, the conversation begins and ends with the people who are taking it in, right? And so I can make something, but if there isn't a dialogue with the audience, even if it's not a spoken dialogue, the dialogue of coming to the shows, listening to streaming the records, watching the videos, all that, to show some level of, oh, this is something that inspires me or that I enjoy, that's the thing that spurs all of us on. So I would say, and especially because, you know, I'm 33 now. When we started the band, I was 16 when the band started, and we really started heavily touring around the time I was 18. So I was ostensibly the same age as a lot of our audience when we first started. And so I've sort of grown up with a lot of our audience. And, you know, it's interesting to be in the position where people are coming to our shows now who are in their early 30s and late 20s, who grew up with me and the band. And, you know, I think that's a big part of who I am.
By the way, I loved your performance in American Satan.
Thank
I
you.
thought that movie was outstanding. I watched it because you were in it, and I thought it was going to be one of those things. He's in it; it's going to be okay. But no, you like, wow, like that was really good. Do you feel motivated to do another full-length movie like that?
Well, you know, as far as the American Satan Paradise City world, I don't know what the future is for that, but I can say that we, you know, myself and my team are actively developing something right now that's a more horror-oriented project that I'm really excited about, and we're in the early stages. But yeah, I'm always on the lookout to do more in that world. But what I would really love to do is what we're doing now, which is to be a part of the, you know, because I love American Satan and Paradise City, but Ash Alvinson created all of that, and I wasn't involved in the creative at all. And one of my biggest dreams is to be involved in the creative process of the creation of something like that and develop my own IP and that kind of thing. So we're doing that now, and you know, the way that this industry works, you never know if something's gonna go or not, but we're actively trying to make something go right now.
Being involved in the process, is that because you want to be part of the creative all the way through and see your vision all the way through, or is it because you just want to have a little bit more control of what's happening around you?
You know, it's more about the art of it, honestly. You know, we've done all these concept records, and I've created all these characters and costumes and stuff, and I've always really enjoyed that. And I've always thought, wouldn't it be amazing to move this on to an even larger scale? You know, we did the Legion of the Black movie years ago. You know, we did the multi-part Phantom Tomorrow music video series. I've always liked that, and I would love to have an opportunity to do that on a cinematic level. And so it's just about the love of the art, and getting a chance to do something like that would be incredible.
Now, if somebody else was doing a biopic on Black Veil Brides, who would you want to play you?
Oh boy. So I think I'm significantly older and I look entirely different, but I'll just say this as kind of a joke, because somebody asked me on the plane the other day if I was this person. Do you know that actor, Timothy Chalamet?
Yes.
So
I don't think you look.
I
I
was
don't
on a,
think you look alike, though.
no, but someone asked me on a plane the other day, they go, "Are you that Timothy Chalamet guy?" And I said, yes, of course, because it was too funny to not say yes. And so just based on that alone, I think it would have to be that guy.
Did you do an autograph? Did the person ask you for an autograph or a picture?
No, they were like, oh, and then they walked away. So I guess they're not that impressed with Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah, I was just gonna say maybe they're not huge fans. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just a weird thing for somebody to bring it up to your attention. I was watching the mini documentary that you guys were doing, and I thought that was an interesting line that you said that there's still around 15 people that you hate. And
Sure.
that got me. I thought that was really really interesting, and that got me thinking. How much of those are OGs, and how much has that list grown or contracted through time?
I would say that the list has remained the same for at least the last 8 or 9 years, if not more. But I've been very fortunate that the older I've gotten, I've had a chance to really detach myself from people that in my opinion, for my life, were unhealthy to be around. And this is not damning them. You know, the reality is everybody sees the world through their own prism and their own experiences. But for me, there were people in my life that I didn't think were particularly beneficial for me. And as I've gotten older, you start to realize that you don't have to be around people that you don't enjoy being around. And I've been able to kind of really narrow the people that I spend my life with and the people I spend my life around to people that I find to be the people that I know and trust and love. So the list has not grown much, because these days, I'm more around my wife and cats than I'm around anybody else, to tell you the truth. So and those that's my favorite person in the world and my favorite animals. So you can't go wrong there.
I think you're making great life choices. That's all.
I made a lot of bad ones when I was younger, and so I've been very fortunate that I'm still here to make new adjusted life choices that are much healthier than the drunken mess rock star guy of my early 20s.
Watching that little documentary, it's like 11 minutes or so. I felt like in 11 minutes I learned more about you than with perhaps like a 1 hour interview. You really opened up about a lot of different topics, almost removing the curtain and seeing not just Andy the singer, but seeing Andy the person. Is it your own personal growth now that allows you to do that without any feelings of wondering if this is going to be good for me or not?
I think you just start to not care about the perception as much. The truth of the matter is, I feel like it's a disservice to our audience for me to not say, I was not the most wonderful, ethical, greatest guy when I was really young, and B, a lot of that comes down to the fact that I was too young to be in the environment I was in. And because of my own mental health issues, I was using alcohol and drugs to be able to get through that. And I made a lot of bad decisions because of that. And I want to be able to be an example for people of any age that you don't have to be defined by that. But I don't need to pretend that everything was always through rose-colored glasses. And I don't want to do a disservice to my audience by not being open, because people have given me this opportunity. The reality is, I don't really share on social media. I'm not posting like what I ate for breakfast or, all that kind of stuff. But given the opportunity to speak in a platform like that documentary or to you, I enjoy being able to tell people that I am not some sort of deity. I don't have any kind of special, unique skill that somebody else couldn't do. And most importantly, I am not some sort of elevated, moral high ground sort of like, thought leader. I'm just a guy in a band who gets stuff wrong all the time, and I try to get stuff right more than I get stuff wrong. But I'm as flawed as anybody else, and I think that that's an important position to make sure is out there, because I think sometimes people get so invested in their own hype that they start to believe that they are somehow some sort of as I said, deity. And the truth of the matter is, any of us who are in bands are just people who got a little bit luckier than somebody else, and we're willing to work a little bit harder than somebody else.
Another thing that you mentioned on that documentary that touched home with me, outside of those 15 people that you hate, was the fact that you mentioned about being sober. I never believed that I had a drinking problem, and in December of last year, my son said that I had a drinking problem, and I believe that I should listen to my son, because him and my wife obviously have my best interest at heart. And having him telling me that I had a drinking problem pushed me to quit drinking. So I haven't had any alcohol since December of last year. I always hear people who've quit drinking saying that they feel great. This is the best that I've ever felt. And I got to tell you, it's been pretty shitty these last 4 months going through this. So do you have any words for, not just for me, but people like me who are going through this struggle, the struggle that you've gone through, that you're still going through? Because it's never something that you can say that you're completely over the hump.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's different for everybody. I think that what I experienced was the first time I was like, oh, I'm going to not drink. There was a time where from like the end of 2009, early 2010 through the summer of 2015, I had never played a show not totally drunk. I'd never stepped on stage not totally drunk. And so the first time I did a tour not drinking was this sort of incredible experience of these endorphins and everything else. But the trouble was, by the fall of that year and the subsequent year, the reality of all of the terrible decisions I had made and things that were against my moral compass, or ways in which I treated people, or mistakes that I made, or all these other things, or just the shame of being someone who wasn't representative of who I want to be, and all those times that I blacked out, that all hit me. And then it was abject misery. And without the alcohol to numb it. I just had to live through it. And some people do better than others, but I can tell you that I did not do great. By the fall of like 2016, I was having a rough time. And, you know, ultimately, myself and my partner, we both decided that we were going to not only, you know, stay sober, but work on it together. And I attribute my success with it to her and vice versa. You know, we had each other's backs in that. But for me, everyone's reason for drinking is different. And I think if you can pinpoint the reason that you drink to excess or whatever else, it's easier when you're dealing with the sobriety side to be able to say, I know that I don't want to go down that road because this is all it's doing for me. But I do think that there is a slight misconception about, oh, it's entirely so joyful after this, because the reality is for a lot of us, at least for me, I was drinking to deal with my mental health issues and silence the quote unquote voices in my head. And when the alcohol was gone and the initial endorphins of isn't it wonderful to be sober were gone, it was nothing but those voices coming down all the time. So, you know, as far as advice, it's hard to give advice because I don't know everyone's situation, but I can say that it is of intrinsic value to live a life where you are in control of yourself and your decisions and your choices, because then you can do the things that you know to be moral, ethical, and kind, as opposed to doing things that are outside the realm of what you would want to do with your life because you are not yourself, because you're blacked out drunk and trying to be somebody else.
I think that's a great advice. And I know that it's hard to give an advice, but I think that's a great advice. I think it helps me. I don't, at least now I can look at the reasons why. I never really thought from the angle that you were saying. I never actually really thought about it. So this makes me ponder and look at it from a different perspective, which is always good. Andy, I want to thank you for your time today. I know you love to you and the guys. Thank you very much for taking the time today. I honestly wish you nothing but the best, not only with the tour, but with everything that you guys are doing, this EP, the blood drive. I think you guys are really touching people in a different way. And I love what you're doing. So best of luck for you guys.
Thank you very much. That's tremendously kind. I appreciate you. Thank you for today.
No problem. Take care, man. All the best.
You too. Bye.
Bye.